we hope that we can give other people hope.
Randy Travis was regarded as a symbol of faith and redemption, the man who breathed new life into traditional country music with his warm baritone tone. Over 25 million albums, sold 7 Grammy Awards, 10 CMA Awards, and timeless hits like Forever and Ever, Amen, and 3 Wooden Crosses lifted him to a height every artist dreamed of reaching. Behind that shining glory, however, was a very different man. Few people know that Randy's teenage years were marked by theft, alcohol, and repeated arrests. When fame finally crowned him, scandal struck again: drunk driving, car accidents, and even an arrest while he was found shirtless in the middle of the night. The peak of his tragedy came in 2013 when he suffered a massive stroke and his heart stopped. Doctors said his chance of survival was barely 1%. When he finally opened his eyes, his voice was gone, half his body paralyzed, and everything had to begin again from zero. From the edge of life and death, Randy began a painful yet resilient journey of rebirth, no longer under the stage lights, but fueled solely by willpower and the love of the woman who never left his side. Today, Randy lives with Mary Davis on a ranch spanning over 200 acres in Texas. And amid those silent fields where only the wind whispers and the evening shadows fall upon the old brick house, people can't help but wonder, what is Randy Travis's life like now after everything he's lost? What still keeps him going? Randy Travis, whose real name is Trawick, was born in 1959 in the small town of Marshville, North Carolina, into a poor working-class family living in a wooden house on the town's edge. His father, Harold, was a meat cutter and part-time construction worker, while his mother, Bobby, a gentle yet strong woman, always tried to keep the kitchen warm, even when dinner was nothing more than bread and canned beans. From a very young age, Randy was surrounded by music nights when his father played Hank Williams or Merle Haggard records in their cramped kitchen. By the age of 8, he had already learned his first chords on an old wooden guitar, and Harold, both proud and strict, built a small stage behind the house for his son to sing to the neighbors. Every summer evening under the yellow lights and the sound of laughter, young Randy's trembling yet soulful voice would quiet the whole neighborhood, as if they were witnessing the birth of something extraordinary. Yet within that very house, conflicts began to grow. Harold, both an audience and the first teacher, demanded perfection, pushing Randy to practice until exhaustion. Whenever the boy made a mistake, his father's angry shouts would drown out the guitar's sound. Gradually, music stopped being joy, it became a burden, and Randy began to rebel. At 16, he dropped out of school, drifted around with his older brother, and got involved in petty thefts and brawls. The older he grew, the wilder he became. Alcohol, speeding, and endless nights without purpose. Police records show multiple arrests for theft, assault, and drunk driving. In just 2 years, from 1975 to 1977, he was jailed so often that the local cops knew his face, and the newspapers dubbed him the boy who couldn't be saved. On his 17th birthday, he sat alone in a jail cell, the dim yellow light falling on a youthful yet defiant face. No one could have imagined that this boy behind bars would one day make the entire nation fall silent at the sound of his voice. In 1977, luck found Randy in the most unexpected place. Country City, USA, a small club in Charlotte where amateur singers competed every weekend. The prize was just $100 and a demo recording, but for Randy, it was a chance to prove he was more than just a troublemaker. On that tiny wooden stage, he sang with all his loneliness and longing to be heard. In the audience sat Lib Hatcher, the club's co-owner, quietly watching him from start to finish. In her 30s, seasoned by failures in business and marriage, Lib had an instinctive ear for music and people. She saw in that skinny, rough-edged boy something rare authenticity. When the contest ended, Randy not only won the prize, but also received an invitation to perform regularly at the club. Not long after, when he was arrested again for hot wiring trying to steal a pickup truck, it was Lib who bailed him out, pleaded for a suspended sentence, and took him under her wing. From that moment on, she began the long journey of taming a wild soul, and unknowingly opened the first chapter of what would later become the legend of a country music icon. For many years that followed, Randy lived and worked under the guidance of Lib Hatcher. She taught him how to speak dress and carry himself on stage like a real artist, not just a barroom singer for hire. It was also Lib who gave him his new name, first Randy Ray, and later Randy Travis, the name that America would never forget. Under her mentorship, the once wandering boy who used to sleep in pickup trucks now sang every night, trained his voice, refined his style, and slowly turned passion into a real career. By 1982, Randy recorded his first live album and released it independently. Though the sales were modest, the project caught the attention of producers in Nashville. After years of rejection in 1985, he finally signed with Warner Brothers, marking a major turning point in his life. A year later came Storms of Life. Songs like On the Other Hand and Diggin' Up Bones echoed across radio stations, carrying a raw honesty that stood out in an era when country music was becoming overly commercialized. The album sold more than 3 million copies and earned triple platinum certification, a rare feat for a genre often dismissed as rural. That success not only catapulted Randy Travis to stardom, but also reignited the original spirit of traditional country, sincere, powerful, and deeply rooted in faith and simple values. From that moment, Randy Travis officially entered his golden age. He went on to release Always and Forever, a 5 times platinum album, whose single Forever and Ever Amen became an anthem of enduring love. Thanks to this massive success, Randy won the Grammy Award for Best Male Country Vocal Performance, and his name became engraved in the hearts of Americans as the voice of a new generation that carried the soul of classic country. The following years were a stretch of pure triumph. Old 8/10, 1988, No Holdin' Back, 1989, and Heroes and Friends 1990 all went platinum, cementing his position as one of Warner Brothers' best-selling artists of the era. Alongside 4 Grammy Awards, 10 Country Music Association CMA trophies, and dozens of other honors, Randy Travis became a symbol of faith, redemption, and rebirth. To his fans, he wasn't just a singer, he was living proof that even a lost soul could find the light again, as long as faith in God and music remained. By the late 1990s, changing public tastes pushed traditional country aside in favor of a younger, pop-driven sound. Randy, instead of chasing trends, took a different path, returning to gospel, the music that had nourished his spirit since childhood. In a 2002 interview, he said, "When I sing about God, I feel like I'm home." This choice initially raised doubts among critics, but Rise and Shine 2002 silenced them all. The song 3 Wooden Crosses became a rare phenomenon, a gospel track that carried a religious message yet topped the country charts. Randy's voice by then was no longer as powerful as before, but it had grown deeper, richer, like the voice of a man who had endured loss and finally found peace. He returned to Warner Brothers in 2008 with the album Around the Bend, followed by 2 Influence albums paying tribute to the legends who had shaped his path. Around that time, Randy also began collaborating with younger artists, including Carrie Underwood, who once called him "my first teacher in music." Their duet, I Told You So. 2009 reached No. 2 on the Billboard chart, and earned him his 7th Grammy, proof that even as the spotlight faded, Randy Travis remained the eternal soul of traditional country. Alongside his musical achievements, the marriage between Randy Travis and Lib Hatcher was once considered a fairy tale of the country music world, the story of a woman who saved a lost man and became his lifelong partner. After more than a decade of building a career together, they officially married in 1991 in a small house in Nashville, witnessed only by a few close friends. Lib was not just a wife, she was his manager confidant, and the one who had guided Randy from a jail cell to the biggest stages in America. Yet it was that very closeness that began to fracture over time. As Randy reached the peak of fame, the distance between them grew. He yearned for freedom to be himself beyond the image Lib had crafted. She meanwhile continued to control every detail, from his tour schedules and contracts to even his personal meetings. Behind the glitter of fame, tension quietly built. They no longer talked as they once did. Only small, recurring arguments remained about things that once seemed harmless. By the late 2000s, the cracks in Randy Travis and Lib Hatcher's once celebrated marriage had begun to show. The press started buzzing with reports of backstage arguments, abruptly canceled performances, and rumors that Randy was searching for a fresh start. In 2010, he filed for divorce, ending more than 3 decades of partnership and sending shockwaves through Nashville. But the story didn't end there. Soon after, Lib Hatcher filed a countersuit accusing Randy of breaching their management contract, withholding commissions, and using recordings they had co-owned without permission. Randy denied the allegations, claiming she had exercised excessive control over his finances and private life for years. Once partners who had overcome hardship together, they now faced each other across the courtroom. The media called it a battle between love and power, while fans could only watch in silence as their idol wrestled with scandal and heartbreak. The lawsuit dragged on for 2 years before ending quietly in 2012. No one ever learned the terms of the settlement, only that afterward, Randy retreated to Texas to live in seclusion on his ranch, while Lib disappeared from public view. What had once been hailed as a Nashville love legend now ended as a melancholy full stop. The woman who had once saved him from prison had become his adversary in their final chapter. After his marriage to Lib Hatcher fell apart, Randy seemed to collapse into the emptiness left behind, and the world began to see traces of his old, troubled self returning. From that point on, Randy began drinking more heavily. At first, it was just a few drinks to help him sleep, but it gradually turned into a habit he couldn't escape. Neighbors recalled often seeing his car headlights sweeping out through the ranch gate in the middle of the night, returning only as dawn broke, quiet, weary, as if running from himself. He avoided the press-canceled shows without warning. Whenever he did appear, he looked like a shadow of his former self. Thinner, hollow-eyed, the familiar smile gone. People said he still sang, but he couldn't hear himself anymore. In February 2012, newspapers across the country reported that Randy had been found by police sitting behind the wheel of his parked car outside a church near his hometown, an unfinished bottle of wine beside him. The flashing blue lights reflected off his blurred face, while Forever and Ever Amen played faintly on the radio. That image appeared everywhere. No one could believe that the man who once made America believe in decency was now losing his grip on himself. Randy received only a minor fine, but the heavier blow came from the look of disappointment in the public's eyes. Close friends said little, only that he was battling something no one else could reach. Less than 6 months later, another scandal erupted, this time far more serious. On a rainy night in August 2012, on a lonely road in Grayson County, police received a call. There's someone lying in the middle of the road. When they arrived, the only thing visible was the red glow reflecting off the wet asphalt. And Randy Travis, completely naked, collapsed beside a dented pickup truck, blood trickling from his forehead, muttering incoherently in a drunken haze. When officers placed him in the patrol car, he lashed out in panic, shouting threats. The entire scene was captured on camera and spread across the internet in a matter of hours. By the next morning, Randy Travis's name dominated every headline, no longer the golden voice of country, but the fallen star. The man who once sang of love and faith was now portrayed as a broken soul spiraling out of control in the Texas rain. He was charged with driving under the influence and threatening law enforcement, released on a $20,000 bond, marking the most painful fall of his storied career. After the incident, Randy all but vanished from public view. Friends said he spent most of his time at home speaking to no one except a few close companions. He began keeping a journal, scattered notes about dreams, sleepless nights, and his fear of being forgotten. Many believed he had completely lost himself, but even in his weakness, Randy clung to one small flicker of faith in music. In one entry he wrote, "Maybe I need silence for a while. The voice needs rest. The soul does too." But fate had not finished with him. In July 2013, while preparing for a small southern tour, Randy suddenly collapsed. A massive stroke left him unconscious, his heart stopped, and he was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Doctors said his chances of survival were around 1%. After hours of surgery, he finally opened his eyes to a world forever changed. He could not speak, could not move the right side of his body, his face stiff and expressionless, and his voice, the one that had once silenced America, was gone. This time the headlines sounded different. There was no mockery, no judgment, only quiet sorrow. From Texas to Tennessee, church signs carried hastily painted words, "Pray for Randy." Nashville fell silent. A living legend remained, but the soul of his music seemed to have drifted away. During those long days in the hospital, one woman never left his side, Mary Davis. Once a close friend, she became his companion, the woman who would stay with him for the rest of his life. Mary was there every day, changing his bandages, wiping his forehead, helping him move a finger, whispering prayers at night. When Randy couldn't speak, she sang for him, softly trembling, as if calling his spirit back. In the pale hospital light, the man who once ruled the Grand Ole Opry now lay staring at the white ceiling, lips moving without sound. The months that followed were filled with endless rehabilitation. Randy learned how to speak again, how to walk, how to swallow food. Sometimes he broke down in tears during therapy, his shoulders shaking from pain. Mary held his hand and whispered, "We'll hear you sing again, even if it's just one line." And it happened. 3 years later, in 2016, at his Country Music Hall of Fame induction, when everyone assumed he was there merely to appear, Randy suddenly began to sing. Just one verse of Amazing Grace, hoarse, frail, but clear. The entire room rose to its feet, many in tears. No one cared whether the words were perfect because they knew it wasn't just a song, it was proof of life. From that moment, Randy Travis emerged from the storm of his life not as the shining star he once was, but as a soul reborn from fire. He had lost his voice, his fame, even his ability to care for himself, but he still had one thing left: the will to keep going. And when doctors finally allowed him to leave the hospital, Randy Travis returned home to Texas to his 220-acre ranch, the land he had built over 2 decades as a part of his very soul. There, the wind sweeps through the old oak trees, carrying the scent of soil and the soft snorts of horses in the southern warmth. Small cottages dot the hills, hidden behind wooden fences and dusty red roads. From the main gate, a winding path leads to the main house, nearly 800 square feet of traditional adobe brick, its warm brown surface rough and sun-baked, as if still holding the breath of the Texas heat. Behind it stands the clay chapel, the most unusual building on the property. From the outside, it looks like an old church complete with a bell tower and doors carved with crosses. But inside, there's only an abandoned practice room, a few faded photos from his younger days, and a microphone lying silent beneath a film of dust. Farther out lies the stable where Randy once rode every morning as sunlight swept across the fields. The purebred horses are still cared for by Joe, his loyal manager of more than 20 years. He still loves them, Joe says. Even now, he just stands by the fence and watches them run. That look in his eyes, it's the same as before. Recovery came painfully slow, so slow that few dared to hope. Yet each day, Randy moved forward by the smallest measure. At his side was still Mary Davis, the woman who had stepped out of his past to become his final anchor. She cared for him meal by meal, guided him out to the porch where the dry Texas wind blew, and listened as he struggled to speak, only fragments, gasps of air. Mary understood without words, simply holding his hand tightly. Between them, there was no need for speech, only silent eyes and shared pain. In those early days back at the ranch, Randy avoided mirrors. He couldn't bear the reflection, the twisted face, the once strong body now frail and sunken. He had sung of faith, of hope. Now he wasn't sure he still believed in either. Some nights he cried not from pain, but from the aching memory of singing, of standing on stage, of hearing the crowd call his name. Now all of it existed only as fragile memory, distant as a fading dream. And yet, in the stillness, another battle was taking place. Randy began learning to speak again, sound by sound, word by word. Doctors used voice stimulators, guiding his breathing and adjusting his vocal cords. Some weeks were spent just to pronounce a single word, but he persevered. Slowly, his voice returned, raspy, weak, but alive. Sitting across from him, Mary softly sang "Forever and Ever, Amen." He mouthed the rhythm, no clear sound, yet enough to show that music still flowed within him. In the afternoons, Randy sat in his wheelchair on the porch, watching the sun set over the red hills. His shadows stretched long and thin like carved stone. Sometimes he lifted his gaze to the sky, his deep-set eyes reflecting the pale violet of dusk. When night fell, he asked for the old videos, the ones showing a young man with a ringing voice and eyes full of faith. He watched, then smiled, a crooked, trembling smile, but one that reminded him of who he used to be. When the screen went dark, the room returned to silence, only the sound of wind and his labored breathing remained. Now Randy lives among fragments of memory. There are no stages, no audiences, only a quiet man surrounded by the vastness of Texas. But Mary still believes. Every night when he manages a few broken words of amazing grace, tears well in her eyes, because she knows, even though his voice has faded, the soul of the artist within him has never surrendered. Beyond Texas, Randy still owns a high-end condominium on the outskirts of Nashville, once his retreat after long nights on tour, and the place that witnessed the brightest years of his career. The apartment, about 1,800 square feet, sits on a high floor overlooking the city skyline. Unlike the rustic ranch, this place is sleek and modern, dark wooden floors, glass walls opening to the horizon, and minimalist decor in soft shades of gray and cream. In the living room, an old acoustic guitar still leans in the corner, beside a dusty record shelf lined with dozens of golden albums. On the wall hang photographs of Randy with George Strait, Alan Jackson, and Reba McEntire, the peers who helped shape country music's golden era. On quiet nights, Randy often sits by the window pouring a glass of whiskey and fun watching Nashville's lights shimmer across the glass, as if looking back at his younger self. It was once the place where he and fellow musicians would stay up late writing lyrics, testing melodies, or simply telling stories from the road. But after the stroke, Randy has rarely returned to Nashville. The apartment remains untouched, as if time itself had stopped on that final night he sat beside his guitar when the strings still hummed, and his voice had not yet fallen silent. And though his legs no longer have strength, he still keeps one habit: visiting the garage each afternoon, quietly gazing at the dust-covered cars, the prized machines once worth hundreds of thousands of dollars now standing as silent witnesses to a glorious life that has gently come to its close. The first and dearest among Randy's vehicles is his 1982 Ford F-150, a steadfast companion that carried him across countless honky-tonks in Tennessee and Oklahoma during his early years in music. It's the rare bullnose model known for its durability and boxy vintage design, now valued by collectors at tens of thousands of dollars if kept in original condition. But for Randy, its worth was never about money. He once said, "It's where I first slept, ate, and dreamed of Nashville." The truck remains untouched by restoration. Its deep blue paint faded, the steering wheel worn smooth, and the faint scent of aged leather still lingering. Even after acquiring a ranch spanning hundreds of acres, Randy instructed his caretaker to start the engine once a month, so it still remembers the touch of a man. Beside it sits a gem of the 1970s, a 1976 Cadillac Eldorado, the final commemorative edition before the model discontinued its rear-wheel chassis. Randy's Eldorado is particularly rare, painted in its original gold mist color with ivory leather interiors and a mechanical clock that still works perfectly. He drove it to the 1990 CMA Awards the night Forever and Ever Amen crowned his glory. Later, he had the engine and frame completely restored, spending over $40,000 just to keep it exactly the way it was the day Nashville applauded for me. Today, the Eldorado rests in its own display room, bathed in golden light that makes it look as if it's asleep in a metallic sunset. In another corner of the garage stands the legendary tour bus, the Wind Rider, the vehicle that carried Randy more than 2 million miles across America over 2 decades. It's a custom-built Prevost XL worth around $300,000 at the time, equipped with sleeping quarters, a mini recording studio, a small kitchen, and leather seats embossed with RT. Many of his hits like Hard Rock Bottom of Your Heart and He Walked on Water were written inside that bus during late-night drives down empty highways. When the stage lights finally dimmed, the bus was parked permanently at the edge of the ranch between 2 oak trees. Mary Davis calls it the Traveling Temple, a sacred place that once held the sounds of a golden era, now filled only with the whisper of wind through its windows and the faint smell of old wood. Few know that Randy also owns a 2005 Chevrolet Suburban Special Edition, a custom SUV designed specifically for him after his stroke. The seats and steering wheel were rebuilt with technical assistance from GM engineers as a tribute to the country legend. Mary is its primary driver, taking him to medical appointments, public appearances, or simply for quiet evening drives around the small town of Santa Fe. To others, it's just a car. To Randy, it's a symbol of rebirth, slow, steady, and enduring, just like him. For that reason, Randy Travis's cars are not merely vehicles or collector's items, they are witnesses to a life of music freedom and a man who traveled through both triumph and despair with unwavering faith and perseverance. From that garage, the story continues in numbers, the wealth that reflects a lifetime of music and relentless work. As of today, Randy Travis's net worth is estimated at around $12 million. It may seem modest compared to other stars, but its value lies in its integrity, every dollar earned through his voice and his decades of honest artistic labor. The largest share of Randy's income has always come from music royalties. During the golden age of physical albums, Storms of Life, 1986, Always and Forever, 1987, Old 8810, 1988, and No Holdin' Back. 1989 all went platinum or multi-platinum. Storms of Life alone sold over 3 million copies, generating millions in publishing and recording royalties. Even today, in the age of streaming, his music lives on across hundreds of playlists like classic country and American legends, ensuring a steady stream of royalties from airplay digital releases and international publishing. Alongside his studio work, touring was Randy's second major source of income. From the late 1980s through the early 2000s, he was among America's top-grossing country performers. Each year, he played more than 200 shows, from small-town stages in Oklahoma to packed arenas across Texas. Tickets sold out within hours, and merchandise like shirts, hats, and autographed records constantly sold out. With his calm, heartfelt stage presence, Randy built one of the most loyal fan bases in country music audiences who didn't just listen but grew up with his songs. In the early 2000s, as pop country began to dominate the charts, Randy took a bold turn toward gospel music. At first, critics saw it as a risky move, but Rise and Shine 2002 with its breakout hit Three Wooden Crosses proved them wrong. The song swept religious music awards and achieved strong commercial success, marking the start of a new chapter in his career. His devoted, faith-based audience kept his revenue stable even as he slowed down touring. Subsequent gospel albums sold well and were embraced by churches across America, ensuring long-term royalty income. Beyond albums and touring, Randy also earned from synchronization rights when his songs were featured in films, advertisements, and TV shows. Tracks like I Told You. So, Deeper Than the Holler and Hard Rock Bottom of Your Heart often appeared in documentaries and films about America, earning him generous sync royalties. Every time one of his songs played in a movie scene, a portion of the profits flowed back to him, a quiet but steady reward long after his stage lights dimmed. And yet, the greatest legacy Randy left behind isn't measured in wealth, but in the kindness he showed to others. Since the 1980s, when Storms of Life first made him a Nashville sensation, Randy has been deeply involved in charity work. Never one for publicity or grand gestures, he preferred quiet giving, using his own voice to raise funds. For years, he performed at benefit concerts, whose entire proceeds went to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, a place he called the home of hope. He believed that if music could make people smile, it could also help them heal. Alongside this, Randy was a familiar face at Music Cares events, an organization supporting musicians struggling with health or financial hardship. He once said that a stage shines only because of those behind it, from sound engineers to drivers, from band members to backstage crews. Helping them, Randy believed, was the truest way to keep music alive. Not only among fellow musicians, Randy also extended his compassion to children and those in need. He donated regularly to the Children's Health Fund and Special Olympics organizations that provide medical and educational support for underprivileged children. There were no speeches, no publicity photos. Randy simply sent quiet contributions drawn from his music royalties, his way of balancing what he had received in life with what he could give back. After his 2013 stroke, Randy's charitable journey entered a new chapter. When he could no longer sing, he chose to inspire others through his own story. Together with his wife, Mary Davis, he took part in numerous fundraising events for stroke survivors and rehabilitation centers. They sponsored medical equipment, attended patient gatherings, and shared their personal recovery experiences. For many, just seeing Randy a nod, a handshake, a faint smile was enough to feel the power of endurance and faith. Mary has said that every time they receive a thank you letter from a patient, Randy keeps it. He reads slowly, mouthing each word, sometimes breaking into tears. In their Texas ranch house, a small cabinet is reserved for those letters, a quiet reminder that his music, even without his voice, continues to heal in spirit. In 2019, Randy and Mary established the Randy Travis Foundation, an organization built on two missions to preserve the heritage of traditional country music and to support stroke recovery. The foundation funds scholarships for speech therapy students, sponsors medical programs, and organizes small-scale charity concerts. Though he can no longer say much whenever the foundation is mentioned, Randy simply smiles and writes 2 words on paper for others. And perhaps that is the most beautiful part of Randy Travis's legacy, not the golden trophies or the millions of dollars, but the belief that when kindness is given, music will never fade. Today at 66, Randy Travis is no longer the dazzling star commanding the Nashville stage, but a symbol of resilience, a man who has passed through sin fame and a devastating stroke that stole his voice, yet still sits each Texas evening smiling into the sunset. He may no longer sing, but every glance, every breath is a quiet song echoing through life. And perhaps in this noisy world, it is his silence that has become the most beautiful music of all. What do you think of Randy Travis's journey from glory to tragedy and then rebirth in the solitude of Texas? Leave your thoughts in the comments hit. Like, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to join us in uncovering the stories behind the spotlight where the legends of Hollywood and Nashville still live on in memory and faith.